Building a financial base. In the space provided, explain why historically most people seem to begin to build a financial base in real estate. Okay, and this I need to type up for you. Okay, let's see chat, but it's pretty big. Okay, maybe here. Maybe I have to move this up a bit. Move this up. Okay, to there. Okay, so why have historically people begun to build their financial base in real estate? And the first answer is because everybody needs a place to live. Place to live, okay? So again, if you're paying rent, you're basically giving your money to somebody else and they're gonna take advantage of that, okay? And you'll never see that money again, okay? And as mentioned earlier, if you're working 5 days a week, okay? Let's say you're working 5 days a week, which many people are. Okay, one of those days is probably going to taxes or more, okay? But let's say 20%, let's say you're in the lowest income tax bracket in the United States, which is 20%. And so one of those days is going to taxes, okay? And most Californians are spending about 40% of their income on housing, okay? The recommended rate is 30 to 30, between one third to 30% of your income should be going into your housing. But because housing is very expensive in California it's about 40%, okay? So now of the 4 days that you're working for yourself, half of them have gone into your rental payments, okay? And that leaves you 2 days out of the 5 for you, okay? Whereas if you're paying money into a mortgage account, about half of the money over the long term, over the span of 30 years, which is your typical house mortgage agreement in California, about half of that money that you will have paid in will stay in your account, and about half will go towards interest payments, okay? But every month, some percentage of the money you're paying against your mortgage will stay in your account, meaning that it'll be used to pay down your principal, okay? Okay, number 2. Oops, okay, let's see. Okay. Let me see. Okay, gotta go back up. Okay, go back up. Here we go. Okay, number 2 is, oh wait, I just covered it. Number 2, your mortgage deposits will stay in your own account. Okay, and this is about roughly 50%. Okay, half of your mortgage payments will go towards interest, and about half will stay in your account over the long term. Okay. Number 3. Home prices generally rise. Okay, in many places, okay, probably most places. Some places no, okay. Like if if you're in the middle of war in Syria or Afghanistan, Iraq, you know, probably not. Home values in Japan have been declining for the last 25 years, but the reason for that is that Japan has been in a recession for the last 25 years. Okay, so some places no, but most places yes. And California, yes, for sure. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, the average home price in California in the 1960s was probably in the 20-something, $20,000 to $29,000 was probably the average home price in California. And the median home price today in LA and Orange County is about $1 million. Okay, so home prices go up, okay? So meaning that if your parents had bought a home in California 50 years ago, and let's say they had paid $20,000 for the house, Today they would probably be in a home that's worth about $1 million. Okay. And if you wanted to buy a brand new car, which some people want to do, it's not advisable to buy a brand new car, but just as an example, if you want to buy a brand new car will cost you probably $20 to $30 to $40,000, depending on the quality of the car. Inexpensive 120, mid-level 130, and nice one 40,000. Okay, but your parents could have, let's say, a home worth about $1 million. So what are 20 or 30 or $40,000 up against a equity of $1 million? Well, not much. Okay. Okay, number 4, security. Okay, what do we mean by that? Okay, by security, I mean that your home is probably the safest place for you to be. Okay, the expression here used to be that a man's home is his castle, but the way to say it today is that a person's home is their castle. Okay, because the United States is a fairly safe country. It's one of the safer countries in the world, to be honest with you, but it's not as safe as, let's say, Japan or South Korea. Japan and South Korea are probably among the safest countries in the world, but the United States is fairly safe. Most of the time you're safe at home, on the street, in your car, at work, at school, the shopping centers. But we do have incidents of violence, right, in the streets, in the freeways, in the shopping centers, sometimes at the schools, sometimes at concerts. We do have, unfortunately, some incidents of violence in this country. So, and in that case, your home is probably your safest, your most secure place. Okay, and no one is allowed into your home without your permission. No one, not even your family members. Okay, unless their name is on the title of your home. Okay, so nobody's allowed into your house without your permission. They could maybe come to the front yard and knock on your front door. That might be okay, but if you ask them to leave, they have to leave. If you tell me, I don't want you coming to my front door, that's it. They're not allowed back to your front door. If they do that, then you could call the police, and the police will instruct them that they need to get off your property. Okay. But not even the police or military forces are allowed into your home without your permission. If the police or a military designee wishes to enter your home, they need to get a search warrant from a judge, which means that the judge has to be convinced that there's enough reason or cause or evidence to warrant a search of your home for some reasonable cause. Okay, if the police or a military representative should come into your home without your permission, they've broken the law, and they've become criminals. They've committed a criminal act, which means they're criminals. Okay, which would not be good for them. Okay, so that's the reality. Now, the other thing that I should mention is that about 1/3 of Americans own guns. Okay, that means 1 out of every 3 persons own guns, and so many Americans have guns in their houses. And sometimes we do have home invasions. Okay, that does happen sometimes, more in some neighborhoods than others. So if someone should to break into your house and you have a gun, you could potentially shoot them, and or kill them, and you will probably not go to prison, right, based on self-defense in your home. Okay. Now, I don't recommend you shoot anybody, okay, at all. If possible, even if you have a gun, okay, I would suggest that you run away if possible. Run away, even if you're the one who has a gun. Maybe the intruder doesn't have a gun, and you have a gun. That's okay. Run away anyway. Okay, because if you shoot somebody, it's going to be a very traumatic experience. First of all, you've taken a human life, okay, which is not a good thing. In fact, that's against one of the commandments given to us by Moses. Number 2, it's going to be a very traumatic experience for you. Okay, you're going to be traumatized. Yeah, you're going to be having nightmares at night for many years to come, maybe for the rest of your life. Okay, You're gonna wake up in the middle of the night with nightmares, right? At first, a lot, okay, and then over years less. But even after many, many years, once in a while you wake up with a nightmare of that you shot and killed this person, right? And thirdly, because it's gonna be very messy. It's gonna be a very messy affair. You shoot somebody, there's gonna be blood and guts all over the place, right? Very dirty, messy thing. So if possible, run away. But if you should be cornered, like trapped in your house and there's no way out, you could potentially shoot somebody or kill somebody, and you probably will not go to prison. Okay, so that's what I mean by security. Okay, number 5. Number 5 is tranquility. What I mean by that is that once you have a certain amount of equity in your home, oftentimes you can turn to that equity and borrow against the equity in your home to solve a problem. Okay, so for example, let's say your car broke down and was not repairable, and you need to get another car, preferably a used one, a nice used one. New cars are probably not a good investment. Okay, but let's say you needed $10,000 or $15,000 to get a decent used car because your old car just died. Okay, but let's say you had $100,000 equity in your home, right? You could go to a lender and say, look, I have this home and I have 100,000 equities in the home, and I'd like to borrow $10,000 or $15,000 to buy another car to replace the car, my previous car, which died, and I need the car to go to work. They'll probably say yes. Yeah, we can lend you $10,000 or $15,000 against your home equity. No problem. Okay. And your interest rate will be lower than at a car dealer because it's your money. They're basically lending your money at a lower interest rate than if you were getting a car loan from a typical car dealer. Okay, so that gives you a certain peace of mind. Okay, you lose your job. Okay, I lost my job. Okay, so you go to a lender and you tell them, I have $50,000 or $100,000 equity in my home. I'd like to borrow some money for 6 months until I find another job, and then I'll repay the money. Right? So they say, oh, we can lend you. They won't lend you 100% of your equity, okay? Because that would be foolish. But they might lend you as much as 80% of your home equity. And last year, home values in California went up 23%. Okay, and the median home in Orange County broke $1 million last summer. Okay, so let's say you had $1 million home, okay, which would be the median price in Orange County. But in the last year, your home values in California rose by 23%. So you multiply by 23%. Nope, by 23%. So in 1 year, you gained about $230,000 in equity in your home. So if you sold it, you could walk away with that money plus whatever other equity you already had in your home, right? So you go to a lender, you say, well, I have $230,000 equity in my home, and I'd like to borrow against my home equity. They want to know that you're working, okay, so they can pay back the money. But they will lend you as much as 80% against that home equity. So you multiply it by 0.8. So they could potentially lend you about $184,000. Okay, if you lost your job, you're not going to borrow this much money. Okay, you'll borrow whatever you need, maybe $2,000 to $5,000 a month that you would need for 6 months. So you're talking between $12,000 to $30,000, right? Did you borrow against your home equity until you find your next job? You cover all the expenses and keep going. That's tranquility. That's called peace of mind. Okay, meaning that you're not going to be in bed perspiring, with your eyes wide open, peeled open, right? Worrying about your expenses, right? You don't have to worry about that. You lose your job, you go to the lending institution, you have, some equity in your home, hopefully as large as possible, and you borrow whatever what are the funds you need to solve the problem that you have, that you're facing. You solve the problem and you keep going. That's called peace of mind. Okay. Okay. Number 6 is prestige. Okay. And what I mean by prestige is that the best way to separate the haves from the have-nots is probably along the lines of real estate. Okay. So if you have a home or an apartment or a duplex or a triplex or an apartment building or some type of real estate, you're a have. You have something. Okay. For the reasons that I mentioned, because you're paying down your mortgage, which means that you have a positive balance in your mortgage account that you can use, which is money. And real estate values have appreciated in California dramatically in the last 50 years. And they're appreciated. And historically, I think they're appreciated at a rate of about 7%, although last year, which is a very unusual year, they rose by 23%. Okay. So you have appreciation there, which means you have money. You have money, right, in that property, house, duplex, apartment building, whatever. Okay, so you have. Okay, if you're not a property owner, if you own a home, a duplex, a triplex, an apartment building, whatever. I hate to tell you this. I hate to give you the note, be the bearer of bad news, but you have not. You really have not. Okay, because even if you have $100,000 car, let's say we recently bought a car at Lexus, and I know they have a Lexus that's over $100,000. It's very nice. We were tempted to buy it, but we didn't buy it. Even if you buy a $100,000 car, you know that in a few years that car is going to be worth $50,000. A few years later, it's going to be worth $25,000. Then it's going to be worth $10,000. Then it's going to be worth nothing. Okay, so that car is basically worth nothing, especially if you're making payments. It's basically worth nothing. Over long term, it will be worth nothing. In the vast majority of cases, 90%, 95%, 99% of cases, cars become junk, with some exceptions, right? Some collector items. Okay, so that's worth nothing. Maybe have the best laptop on the planet. You know that that laptop is going to turn to nothing, turn to junk. Okay, you have the iPhone 50. Okay, you got the iPhone 35 or whatever. Okay, you know that eventually that's going to be a piece of junk, worth nothing. Okay, the only thing that holds value is jewelry. Jewelry can hold value depending on the market conditions, right? Because markets go up and markets go down. The price of gold goes up and my price of gold goes down. So jewelry will hold some of its value. Okay, but if you do have expensive jewelry, my recommendation is that you keep it in a safe deposit box because it will disappear. People will steal it from you. Okay, in the health club, in the bathroom, in the restaurant, the cleaning people, the cleaning ladies could potentially steal it. Okay, just a word of caution. So that's the best way to, I think the best way to divide the haves from the have-nots is along the lines of real estate. For most people, having a single family dwelling, their own home, right? The other reason that I mentioned prestige is that if you go to a gathering or party or get together and you tell people you own a home in whatever location, that gives you a certain amount of, that puts you in a different position than if you're a renter. Okay, so even if you, let's say you own a home in Compton. Okay, Compton is one of the lowest income communities in California, or San Bernardino. If you own if you're a homeowner there, it's very different than if you're a renter in Compton or San Bernardino, right? Very different. A very different scenario. If you own a home in a mid-level city, okay, which might be like Anaheim, Fullerton, right? That's going to give you better standing than if you own a home in a low-income community like Compton or San Bernardino, right? Mid-level city like Anaheim, Fullerton. Right? If you own a home in a exclusive neighborhood like Bel Air, Westwood, Brentwood, Irvine, Newport Beach, Malibu, that puts you in a very different standing than if you own a home in a mid-level city or a low-income city, right? And people will respond like that. They're like, or you live there. Okay, you own a home in Malibu, right? You own a home in Bel Air. You own a home in Newport Beach, like that. That will be the response, right? Which puts you at a different level as opposed to, oh, you're renting a home in Newport Beach. You know, you're renting a home in Brentwood. Different story. Okay, so those are the reasons. That's how people build the financial base. Okay, let's stop there.